It was January 2002. And just 4 months prior, our country had witnessed a tragic event that changed the landscape of not only New York City, but of the future of our nation. And just on the heels of 9/11, this beautiful house of worship was destroyed in a devastating fire. As the flames engulfed the building, several members of the congregation gathered outside in the parking lot, and they stood there helpless, worried, powerless, some speechless, as they watched firefighters battle the blaze. But their efforts were to no avail. I can imagine the thoughts running through their minds as they stood there in shock and disbelief. Who did this? How did this happen? Haven't we suffered enough? Where is God? Well, where will we worship now? Will we ever have our church again? Oh, I'm so grateful no one was hurt. Thank God we were spared. Why would God allow this to happen to us? So often, God shakes us through adversity, whether it be job loss, the death of a loved one, the end of a marriage, or a tragic accident that changes the course of our lives forever. And as this building was in flames, I'm sure it felt as if this church was gone forever, never to rise from its ashes. But I can tell you, friends, that no matter how hopeless things appear, God always has a plan of restoration and elevation. And just like our church here at Westside, the Israelites knew what it meant to experience destruction and loss. Their holy temple in Jerusalem was destroyed, and many were exiled to Babylon. They were separated from their families and were forced to adapt to a new life far away from home. They were strangers in a strange land. Yet, in time, God brought them out of exile and back home. And you would think that the Israelites would have been overjoyed to be back home and see family members from whom they were separated. They would be excited to rebuild the temple, to have a place to worship the Lord again. But no, that didn't happen right away. You see, they had been in Babylon for over 70 years. Many people died there, never returning home, while others were born while in exile. So many of those who were just born were returning to Jerusalem for the very first time. And even though they were home, once again, they were strangers in a strange land. Can you imagine how that must have felt? Being confused or lost, even foreign among their own people. But still, they became accustomed to their new old way of life and began rebuilding the temple. Yet the work stopped after only building the altar and foundation. They became so focused on building houses for themselves that they neglected to finish God's house. And here is where we are in this story. God spoke through the prophet Haggai to Zerubbabel, Joshua, and to the remnant of the people, commanding them to rebuild his temple. And they did. But less than 27 days later, while they were still hard at work, God spoke again. Why? They were already busy rebuilding just as God commanded. What more was there to say? So God says in the text, "Who is left among you who saw this house in its former glory?" Who is among you who saw this house in its former glory? Many of you here today know only this new building, not the one that stood before the fire. And perhaps you were born after it happened, or maybe you've only recently joined this community. Even I don't know the old church. But I've been told wonderful stories about this church by so many of you. And not only stories of this building, but of the life and love that filled it, and the ways this congregation blessed the community for decades. Have you ever sat with loved ones, with parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and listened as they passed down family stories? And perhaps they told you of family traditions and their origin, or firsts in careers, educational achievements, or their service to their country. And they may have even shared the struggles that our families of past generations endured to get us to this moment. Now, I remember hearing stories from loved ones, and every time I hear these stories, it feels like I'm right there. My imagination takes flight, and I soar with my parents and my elders in the community as they take me on a trip to the past to see how far we've come. Now, I imagine the Israelites did the same while in exile, telling stories of their ancestors, of the temple's splendor, of God's favor upon his people. Those stories would have given them hope and purpose, just as our stories do for us. And when I hear these accounts, they motivate me to do my part, to fulfill God's purpose for my life, and to leave a legacy for those who come after me. I move forward for God's glory, never forgetting what's behind. It's just like the Sankofa bird. It's a symbol from Ghana that teaches us this very truth. It flies forward while looking back. Now, looking into the present, I ask you, how does this house look to you now? Go ahead, look. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's absolutely gorgeous. I still remember when I first came here to a service at Westside. When I walked inside the sanctuary, I immediately looked up. And I could tell right away, just from the design and the structure, that the acoustics were phenomenal. And I hadn't even heard the choir sing yet. But this is part of the splendor of this church. Not only its beauty, but its function and its contribution to the musical life of the church and the community. And yet, as beautiful and functional as this space is, there is still more work to be done. When Newman Architects designed this sanctuary after the fire, they said they were struck by the power of what remained and what could be imagined. These architects could see with their mind's eye the possibility of a reconstructed sanctuary and its purpose for this church family and community. And God called the Israelites to do the same. He told them not of times past, but of what is to come. The latter splendor will be greater than the former. At that time, the temple in Jerusalem was unfinished. It was barely standing, so there really wasn't much to see. How could God speak of the splendor of a temple that's hardly there? Maybe your life feels like that unfinished temple. It's broken, messy, or incomplete. What temple are you rebuilding? A marriage? A relationship with your child? Your health? A deeper connection to God? Even if it feels like it's in ruins right now, God promises it will be greater than before. Can you see it with your spiritual eyes? Can you imagine the glory that's coming to your life, to your family, this church, even this community? It will be greater than we can imagine because God Himself will bring the glory. Now, we've already built a new home for this church, but God's work isn't finished. Now, as we renovate the barn and open our outdoor spaces to the community, I continue to think of how the architects described this building after the fire. They said, some walls remained, but no roofs. Space opened to the sky and light penetrated the scarred interior. That image captures the heart of our West Side Outside campaign, going beyond these four walls to create openness, visibility, and alternative ways to worship and to serve. The vision is already in place, but just imagine how much greater it will be when it's realized. Do you wonder what glory God will bring to this place inside and outside? And not just this physical building, the barn, or even the land, but in us, our hearts, our minds, our spirits. How much greater will our walk with God become? And just as God was with the Israelites when they left Egypt, God is with us now. He was with us when this church was destroyed. He was with us as donations and prayers poured in from near and far. He was with us as we worshiped and met with our small groups in various locations throughout the city. God was with us as we gathered together again to move into this new space. And He is still with us, empowering us to continue the work, to care for this place, to serve our community, and to share the light of Christ with all our neighbors. God's glory is here, and His future glory will be revealed. So I encourage you, be strong, keep working, and hold on to God's vision, because when God's glory is revealed, it will truly be more than you can imagine. Thanks be to God.